Valentine's Day. A day meant for love, romance, and heartfelt surprises. But for James, this Valentine's Day would be the day that shattered his world, and the day he unleashed the most calculated, devastating revenge imaginable. James had always believed in love. He believed in the kind of love that made people better, that built lives and futures together. He believed in the vows he had spoken to Emily on their wedding day, in the way she had looked at him with tears in her eyes and promised forever. But forever, as he would soon find out, was nothing more than a well-rehearsed lie. For 8 years, James had been the perfect husband. He worked hard, provided for his family, and cherished every moment with his wife and their twin daughters, Ava and Lily. Every bedtime story, every scraped knee, every birthday party, he had been there, the doting father, the dedicated partner. His life was as close to perfect as he thought it could get. And then came Valentine's Day. James had planned a romantic evening. Dinner at their favorite restaurant, followed by a weekend getaway at a secluded beach resort. He had even booked the same suite they had stayed in during their honeymoon, wanting to rekindle the magic of those early years. But Emily had a different plan. She had been acting strange for weeks, distant, nervous, always on edge. At first, James thought it was stress from work or something she didn't want to burden him with. But that night, over a candlelit dinner, she finally let her secret spill. "James, there's something I need to tell you." He looked up from his plate, concern knitting his brow. "What's wrong?" She took a deep breath, her fingers trembling around the stem of her wine glass. "Ava and Lily, they're not yours." The words slammed into him like a freight train. His world tilted. The restaurant around him faded into a distant hum as her confession echoed in his mind. "What?" The word barely escaped his lips, a whisper laced with disbelief. Emily swallowed hard. I was seeing someone else. It was a mistake. A long time ago. But, they're not your daughters." James stared at her, searching her face for any sign that this was some cruel joke. But the guilt in her eyes, the way her shoulders slumped under the weight of her own betrayal, it was real. Rage, heartbreak, betrayal, they all hit him at once. But James wasn't a man who exploded. No, he was the kind of man who calculated, who strategized, who ensured that revenge was served in the coldest, most devastating way possible. That night, he didn't argue. He didn't demand explanations or let his emotions control him. Instead, he nodded slowly, pushing his plate aside. "All right," he said, his voice eerily calm. Emily blinked. "That's it." He met her gaze, something unreadable lurking behind his dark eyes. "That's it." But that wasn't it. Not even close. James needed proof. The next morning, while Emily was out, he took strands of the girls' hair from their hairbrushes and sent them off for a DNA test. The results came back faster than he expected. 0% match. Everything he had built, every moment he had cherished, had been based on a lie. He met with a lawyer the very next day. Since he had never legally adopted the twins and they weren't biologically his, he had no legal obligation to provide for them. And as for Emily, he was about to make sure she felt the full force of what she had done. Valentine's Day had been ruined for him. So, he decided to ruin it for her forever. A year later, on the next Valentine's Day, Emily received a mysterious invitation to a private dinner at an upscale venue. Confused but intrigued, she arrived expecting James, hoping for reconciliation or at least a conversation. Instead, she walked into a room full of people. Her parents. Their closest friends. The very people who had witnessed their wedding. At the front of the room, a projector screen flickered to life. On the screen appeared the DNA test results. 0% paternity. Gasps filled the room. Emily's mother pressed a hand to her mouth, her father shaking his head in disbelief. Emily spun around, her face drained of color. Then came the text screenshots James had retrieved from an old phone backup. Messages between Emily and her lover. Messages that left no room for doubt. And then, the final blow, a legal document. James stepped forward, holding up a folder. "Divorce papers," he said simply, his voice echoing through the stunned silence. "Finalized." Emily stumbled back, shaking her head. "James, please, I..." He cut her off with a smile. Happy Valentine's Day, Emily. And with that, he walked away, leaving her with nothing but the wreckage of her own betrayal. But James wasn't done. His revenge wasn't about one moment, it was about destroying her entire life. In the following weeks, Emily found herself at the center of a scandal. The story of her betrayal and the public humiliation James had orchestrated spread like wildfire. She lost her job after co-workers turned against her. Her social circle disintegrated overnight. Her lover, once so eager, disappeared without a trace, leaving her to deal with the fallout alone. Meanwhile, James thrived. He moved on, met someone new, and rebuilt his life stronger than before. And every year on Valentine's Day, he would raise a glass, a smirk playing on his lips, knowing that Emily would forever remember the day she lost everything. Revenge had never tasted so sweet.